This video is the second in a series talking about 4 common misconceptions regarding evolution. If you missed the first video, in it we covered the first 3 misunderstandings. Evolution was first proposed by Charles Darwin. Evolution solves the origins of life. Evolution is only a theory. In this video, we cover number 4. Evolution is a random process. Let's talk about it. Misunderstanding number 4. Evolution is a random process where simple things suddenly can become complex things. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins has said that viewing evolution as a random process is perhaps the biggest misunderstanding people have about evolution. Evolution is not a random process. Let's repeat that for emphasis. Evolution is not a random process. This point is subtle, but important to our understanding of the theory of evolution. A good way to understand evolution is to start with the accepted science of artificial selection, where people promote through selective breeding desired qualities of plants and animals. Humans intervene with how plants and animals reproduce, promoting the qualities they like and demoting the qualities they don't like. Artificial selection is in no way a random process. A human steps in with the final design goal in mind and manipulates the reproduction process in order to move towards this goal. Humans are designing here, and artificial selection does require a designer. As a result, we get gentle and prolific dairy cows, protective or fast or clever or cuddly dogs, the meatiest chickens, the most fragrant and colorful flowers, or fewer weeds in the lawn. Charles Darwin himself played around with artificial selection, most notably with pigeons. The main point is that artificial selection does require a designer, an intentional mind pulling the levers behind the scenes. Humans decide which traits are useful and therefore will be promoted, and which ones are not useful and will be phased out. With this understanding, we can discuss Darwin's real contribution to evolutionary theory. That is, natural selection. Remember again that Darwin was not the first person to propose the concept of evolution. His contribution was that he identified the engine that drives evolution. Natural selection, the process Darwin identified, works like this. As life forms reproduce, occasionally copying mistakes are made while passing on information to their descendants. These mutations are rare. They are commonly neutral. They often can be negative. But sometimes these mistakes can be useful. Perhaps a change to a protein that helps it perform its role better, or a mutation where a cell is more sensitive to light, and so is a tiny bit better at detecting and so evading a predator, or a mutation that leads to a slightly longer or stronger fin, so the animal swims a bit faster. As life reproduces and becomes abundant, the resources necessary to support life become increasingly scarce, resulting in more competition for the resources needed to sustain life. And these animals with slightly better ability to either get these resources or avoid becoming one of these resources end up surviving and reproducing. This is a survival of the fittest that we hear about, although Darwin did not coin this phrase. The result is that only the life that is most adaptable, that is quickest, most agile, resilient, prolific, gets the resources to survive and pass on its genes. So where is the designer here? Who pulls the strings? Well, unlike the human designer in artificial selection, deciding which traits to promote, in natural selection there is no designer. What life forms are selected to reproduce are simply the ones that are able to survive long enough to do it. To help us understand the difference between artificial and natural selection, let's first recognize that the word designer is not a helpful word. It implies a volitional mind at work. To use language that is more useful, let's replace the word designer with a more neutral word, agent. We can say that both artificial and natural selection require an agent. That is, something to drive the process of promoting useful traits and demoting less useful traits. What Darwin theorized was that the process of natural selection, and therefore the process of evolution, does not require a designer. It works by itself. To review, here's the key difference. While in artificial selection, the agent is a someone, like the human, in natural selection, the agent is a something, that is, nature. The qualities that are promoted in natural selection are simply the qualities that promote survival and reproduction. They don't have to be chosen by anyone. So the single change in words is the difference between artificial selection and natural selection. Perhaps you've run across the watch on the beach argument, the idea that we stumble upon a watch on the beach. The watch is so complex that obviously it must have had a designer. The modern variation of this argument involves a tornado blowing through a junkyard and accidentally assembling a jumbo jet. On its face, the view that this can happen is absurd, even impossible. And it is a good argument if natural selection were a random process. But again, natural selection is not a random process like a tornado. It has rules. And this is a core misunderstanding about evolution being random. Natural selection obeys rules. While nothing is consciously choosing which traits to promote and demote, these traits are being chosen. They are the traits that survive long enough to reproduce. Evolution is not a random process. This completes our 4 misunderstandings about evolution. The concept of evolution did not begin with Charles Darwin. Evolution is not just a theory. Evolution does not try to explain the origins of life. And evolution is not a random process. Now that we have a clear understanding of these issues, hopefully we can evaluate the theory of evolution accurately. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote, "There are 2 ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true." Truth has 2 parts. One part is believing as many true things as possible. The other part is to not believe as many false things as possible. And this is the road to understanding.